All right. This is an experiment. This is an experiment. Let's see. Today is Monday, April 3rd at 11:59 p.m. This is an experiment episode 42 and go. So really what I'm kind of just reflecting on today has to do with how I got to the position I'm at, the the pathway I've been taking, some of the decisions that I've made, and why I've made them, and how ultimately it's all worked out for the best. And it's put me more in touch with like how I feel like I'm supposed to be going through life. And a lot of this stuff was influenced through experiences, or rather, it was influenced through, experiences, and also some of the principles that I learned from a couple fellas, Dan Nicholson, uh, Nick Peterson, and Randy Massengale. Did I say Dan Nicholson? Did I say that right? I'm pretty sure that's his last name. Um, I don't know why I'm questioning myself on that right now. Actually, I have to pause this and find out just to make sure. Yeah, so I'm not a complete idiot. Dan Nicholson, Nick Peterson, and the current trajectory started with some insight feedback I got from Randy Massengale, who uh, was one of the senior advisors to Bill Gates while building Microsoft back in the 90s. So I was super fortunate to be able to have one on one FaceTime with him. And that conversation single handedly changed the direction of my life for the better when combined with some of the principles that I've learned through bumpers from Nick Peterson, um, and CCA principles from Dan Nicholson, Rigging the Game by Dan Nicholson. CCA was Nick and Dan. The conversation that I had with Randy Massengale, essentially he asked me a whole bunch of questions, and at the end of it, he said, "So you're a musician at heart?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." I mean, to me, I was like, "Well, duh," because I've been doing this my entire life. You know, I've been doing music like it never stopped. And I was thinking about this, you know, uh, at one point, I was thinking about how music as a lifelong commitment, like it very much is a calling. There was one person, this girl that I talked to, woman, um, female, this lady I was talking to, not quite a lady, and whatever, words. So I told her that I played saxophone, and she said that she like used to play violin or something and wish she didn't give it up or whatever, and that was in like second grade. Um, and then there was another girl that I talked to who incidentally used to play saxophone, but just kind of stopped and gave it up or whatever, and all of that. And I think about how many people um start a music journey, and it fuels their life and it does something good for them, but it's not a lifelong thing. It's like, yeah, I played clarinet in high school, I played violin in college or in high school or elementary school, I played piano, or I played this, but um eventually, like, those people stop. um and the ones that don't, it's like it's because you can't turn it off. That's what it feels like for me, like that drive to create using sound. Um, I can't turn it off. I can't imagine living life any other way. I can't imagine living life not creating sound with a musical instrument. I can't imagine that. And and so when Randy said that to me, he was like, "Oh, so you're a musician, you know?" And it, and he also said that he, I'm paraphrasing here, but he ventured to guess that, or speculate, I suppose, that there are, people that were telling me not to, or that I wasn't good, or blah blah blah, or whatever. People in authority, or what, that discouraged me, and then that's why ultimately I didn't, see success as like a musician. Although I found it as a sound engineer, which is music adjacent and still creating with sound in its own regard. Um, so I mean, I can't be mad at that. And he was right. And the thing that I hadn't looked at for the longest time is that the people that were, for lack of better words, shitting all over me, uh, those people were my peers. And all I wanted at that time in my life was to fit in and not be singled out and be excluded and to be the weird. Like, I just wanted to fit in and live a normal life, um, or whatever that means. But all of my peers, whenever I created some sort of original music, whether it be like a beat or a rap, or because I used to write beats and rap and stuff, not very well. Um, Actually, in high school, I don't even know if, yeah, but like in playing guitar, I wasn't very good at guitar. I was good at music, but even still, like the original music that I tried creating, when I went to create my own original music, not performing someone else's, but creating my own original music, I got shat on by my peers, or at least in the early days. So he was right. And if perhaps at that time in my life I'd had, peers that celebrated my music, then things might have been dramatically different. But the truth is that at that period of my life, in middle school and high school, and like my parents and band directors celebrated my music, but my peers didn't. And to me, at that point, those were the only opinions that mattered, were those of my peers, and they said stop, and so I did. So Randy was right about that, Mr. Randy Massengale. So this brings so that was like sometime in, oh, early December, late November, something like that. I can't quite remember. It was sometime at the end of 2022. Um, Currently 2023 right now. But yeah, it was sometime towards the end of that period of time, I think. And I didn't do anything with it immediately. I just kind of let it sit there. And I had gotten a really good opportunity, so it seemed, doing sales for a business. At any rate, it ended up not working out, and I was, basically let go from the company, the business, the I mean, I guess it was kind of a startup. It wasn't a startup, but it's a weird thing. Anyway, I got let go. I wasn't getting the sales call volume that I needed, and I didn't have the resources to mine my own leads. And it was just like, it just wasn't a good situation. And add on top of that, that my first full week of taking sales calls with them, I got sick. So burned a bunch of leads, which wasn't great, wasn't performing well. I couldn't really do the work because I was sick. Like like I got sick, my brain shut down, and I wasn't an effective salesperson, essentially. So I mean, there's a couple different variables to account for why it didn't work out, but ultimately it doesn't really matter why it didn't work out. All that the only relevant piece of information is that it didn't work out. So I'm sitting in the hotel, waiting. I've gotten a day off waiting for my flight. And at first the shock of being let go, um, after working with these guys for like 2.5 weeks out in Vegas, like away from home, like I like just like went out there and just the shock of being let go, because I'd projected like this is my entire future working for this company, and it didn't work out. And so once the shock wore off, well, I don't, well, at any rate, my immediate response was I need to fill this gap, or I need to fill this void. I need to fill this vacuum. I don't have a job. I need to make money. And I'm doing sales and I'm pursuing a path in sales. So I need to get another sales job. Another remote sales job, because that's what I've been doing, and all that kind of stuff. And I'd reached out to a couple places, and they're looking for appointment setters, not ready to bring on salespeople or anything like that. And but I didn't like file any applications. It was just like putting out feelers, seeing what is out there, what isn't, what I might be able to tap into from my personal network, and all that kind of stuff. And um and then I had this moment of of thinking, wait, am I rushing? Am I trying to force something? Am I trying to fill this gap with something, with some other thing? It's like, yeah, I mean, yes, I need to make money. Um but I was like, I'm trying to fill the gap. That's what I realized. I was trying to close a loop. Uh the loop that had opened up was uh making money, making income. And so I thought to myself, I was like, well, this is an opportunity that I could go ahead and try to start doing my own thing again. Maybe, work as a coach, or, get my own clients and, help them with sales stuff. I don't know. I had no idea. I was like, maybe, there's some problem that someone has that I might be able to have a solution to, and they'd be willing to pay me money to help them solve their problem. So, what I said I was going to do is reach out to a couple handfuls of people in my business network, um re, you know breathe some more life into some of those relationships, see where they're at, see if there was anything I might be able to help them with, not like hard salesy thing at all, but just seeing what, if there are any, identifiable gaps that I could help a person with, where it would make sense to work with them. So I did that for a week. I said, I'm going to do this for a week, and if something happens, cool, I'll roll with it. If I'm not able to make any sort of money within 1 week, then I'm going to like put a pause, or just like stop that pathway entirely of trying to like start do like coaching business again, or anything like that. Got to the end of the week, had some really great conversations, was able to offer some insight to some people. But ultimately, I didn't make any money. So, super glad that I was able to use that time to help some other people, and give them some insight on some stuff, but I didn't make money. And so I did what I said I was going to do, and I put a kibosh on that at the end of 7 days. And what I'd, and by the end of those 7 days, what I'd kind of, um, I'd just been watching myself. What am I doing? What's drawing me? What am I paying attention to? And just kind of like a just a passive observation. And I was playing a lot of piano and singing, just playing songs and singing songs, and I was loving it. I was like, this. And the one thing that I keep coming back to over and over and over again is music. um and I started thinking, what's the one thing that I do better than anything else in the world? And it's music and audio, especially sound engineering. I have a really good ear for that stuff. Sound engineering. Um, it's what I do better than anything else in the whole world. And I'd, I'd left that life when COVID happened. COVID happened. I lost my job. The industry went into the shitter. I had no idea how long it was going to last, or when the event industry would make a comeback, and when work would be available again. And so I said, what other skills do I have at my disposal? What else can I do to make money? And that's when I got into going down the whole pathway with coaching, and trying to do that, and then getting into sales. Then I went back to school, which was just like a huge bust. I mean, I'm glad I did. It was a good time. I learned a lot about myself. But at any rate, I stopped doing live sound because of COVID. And then I went off on this whole tangential path in business and entrepreneurship and marketing and sales and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm a musician. I'm a sound engineer. Those are like the things that I do better than anything else in the world. And so I, and one of the reasons that I left that is because the job that I was working, I'd like, I'd hit max capacity. It was no longer challenging. So it was no longer challenging. It was no longer stimulating. I didn't like the hours that I was working in the form that it was, or at least at that point in my life. Working 5 nights a week, and always on weekends, and not. I mean, it was just hard to have a social life, which was something that I really wanted. Ironically enough, ironically enough, I still don't have much of a social life because, I left that. Then I started, doing coaching and sales, and it's just been this huge like instability of income. And so I didn't really have any money to do social stuff with anyway, because I was perpetually broke. I didn't I didn't have money to do anything anyway. So then I didn't have a social life. Then I moved 2 states away where I didn't know anybody, and again didn't have any social life outside of the people that I talked to in class and stuff like that. And and having some of those close relationships. Anyway, um, and I didn't see any ability to make more money. I had no like it. It didn't. I was like, I'm maxed out on income doing this, working this job as a sound engineer at this bar in Nashville. So I need to find a different industry, a different job, a different career, whatever, um, to make that money happen. And then I just like went off on this, you know, like just totally random path. Anyway, um, what I identified in myself as I look back on this, and it's like, when do I feel the best version of myself? And what I'd realize is I'd already created, I'd already hit that, I'd already had my success, and I'd already discovered the best version of myself. Uh, um, when I when I work with my hands, like, going out to a job site and building an audio system from the ground up, uh, taking, putting stuff together, taking stuff apart, using critical listening skills, having banter with the rest of the crew that's working on the project, and developing the relationships with other people in the production company, and different jobs, or different events at different event spaces, different events at different venues, and different people and different clients and different energies, and moving around and going from this place to the next place, and everything is constantly like fresh, instead of sitting in my room all day taking phone calls. I don't have a problem with that, but I feel like when it comes down to what do I enjoy best, it's having like that thing where I'm able to go to different places and do different stuff and all of that. Like, it's a good spot for me to be in. And I think, well, and so I thought about that. Like, when did I feel like the most confident version of myself? What was I doing? What did my life look like? And you know, I and so I was like, well, at this point, it would make the most sense to me, because the things that I'm optimizing for is consistent income that's going to cover all of my base expenses and then some, right? So I was like, okay, I need to make like 5K a month after tax, which I did in my first month back into audio production. So, um, doable, clearly. And I I can't make 10,000 or $20,000 a month doing that, but it puts me back at baseline, which is something that I think is like really important. You have to have your baseline and then add increasing levels of complexity. I mean, that's like, it's always been something that I operated under, and it was echoed by Nick in some of the stuff he talked about in Bumpers, is having a baseline, I think. I mean, I would imagine that's the best wording to apply to that. Um, but in At any rate, I've been rambling a bit. Um, at any rate, I decided I was going to go back to doing what I do best. And that's audio production, sound engineering. And I feel great. I just feel super aligned, and I'm not making an ass load of money. It's not a job that I'm going to get rich with. Um, it's not a career that I can get rich with. But it gives me a launch pad for something greater. And I think that's what I'd been missing, is like, I found my success in sound engineering by working my ass off, and just like continually building and getting better and better at doing what I do, until the point where I could go to any job site and do a good job and get another gig because they said, "Hey, you did a really good job." And I'm in the top I mean, if you count every person that has a computer that makes music or mixes on the it can be if you take every person like that that claims to be a sound engineer, I would say I'm in the top 5%. I know way more about I mean, audio system design, like physics of sound, like true sound engineering. I mean, I would say I'm in the top 5% for sure, or at least in terms of skill. I don't know how it's measured in terms of money. Anyway, um, the top 1% is reserved for people that tour with major acts like, Post Malone or Rihanna or, Taylor Swift or, whatever, A-list music acts. Um, the engineers for those people are in the top 1% for sure. Um, but I'm at least in the top 5%. I'm really good at what I do. Uh, and I found success in that. That is my success. And when I went into this whole realm of coaching and wanting to help people and help people become better versions of themselves and like being a resource for those people and making money from doing that, my success had been taken away from me. And I didn't see it that way. I didn't like if I could flash back. I mean, that's when I started the whole thing. I was like, yeah, I can have success in something else because I had success in this other thing. But the gap was I wasn't able to have a track record of success that other than what was in my audio, and I didn't feel like I could actually use that as a demonstration. I don't know. I don't really know exactly what the dynamic of it was. It doesn't really matter anymore. But um that is my success story. There was a time in my life when I had crippling depression and anxiety, uh and in a super victimized mentality, like super victim mindset, and I had no hope for anything close to what could be considered a good life. Uh, like it was just like I wanted to die. I didn't want to kill myself, but I would rather be dead. Is kind of like how I spent a lot of my life, especially in my 20s, late teens as well. It was just like super depressing. I had no authority over myself, no authority over my domain. I was just floating through life, listlessly. Is that a word? And the idea of being a full-time, like the idea of having a career as a sound engineer full time, where that's all I do is do sound engineer shit. Like I was like it was a dream. Like it didn't seem like something that was like a realistic possibility that I could have a career as a sound engineer and that's all I had to do. I like that was an impossibility. And I made it happen. I I over time I went from being this super depressed piece of shit on like I was not a great person. Um Super depressed, super anxious, super narcissistic, just like pretty toxic in general. you know, deeply medicated by all sorts of random, prescription medications, and then, my own substance abuse tacked onto it, absolutely zero regard for my own life. Uh, you know, I didn't even know that, like, I didn't even think I would make it past 30. I didn't think that I would make it as far as I am right now. I thought I would be either like dead or in jail. I don't know. I just thought I'd be dead by this point. I didn't think I would live this long, which says something. Much less live this long and be able to have a full-time career as a sound engineer, and that's all I do. And then it happened. I made it happen. God was on my side, of course, but I made it happen. Where so many people don't. I did. And when I got this job with this production company here in Iowa, I mean, all I had to do was show up and do the work. And it was easy for me because that's what I do better than anything else. Something that any other, any normal person, like, have no clue how to do what I do. It takes a very high degree of skill. But to me, that high degree of skill is just like normal because I spent so much time and effort mastering the craft. That was my success. That was my success. And now, and it would be foolish to abandon that. It would be foolish to abandon that. I have succeeded. Why would I abandon my success in order to do a whole bunch of stuff that is perpetual failure? That's what I've learned. Like, I've done all of these other things and I've been good and I've kind of gotten somewhere, but at the end of the day, I was never able to do anything as well or successfully, consistently to make it. And so it's like, instead of saying, well, I don't know. At any rate, I'm back to my success. Um, the success that I've created for myself. And this success that I've created for myself is the springboard for whatever comes next. Like, the bigger dream now, the reaching for more has to be complementary to the success that I've already achieved. It has to be at least adjacent to the success that I've already achieved. I can't, like, take this whole, like, reality of my success in sound engineering and take that and put it in a container and say, cool, here's that. Now let me do the new thing, whatever that is. Because that's removing from me and from my psyche the anchor of my own feelings of success. when I'm doing this, when I'm working in this career as a sound engineer, this is me anchoring to my success. Look at me. I am successful. I pursued this path for the better part of my life to this point where most people wouldn't make it, and I did. I can go to any job site and make it happen because I'm just good. I was with this production company for 2 weeks before they said they wanted to give me a full-time position. This is the other part of it. Said they wanted to give me a full-time position if I was interested, and my my initial my initial response was, "Fuck yeah, let's do yeah, make me full time. I'll be like in." But I didn't say that. I was like, "Yeah, let me mull it over." And the more I thought about it, is that what I didn't want was a job. I wanted to work on a freelance basis. I want to be able to say yes to gigs and say no to gigs. And I want to do what I do and not do other stuff, right? If I join full time and the thing that I have to do to get my hours in is go do stagehand work instead of audio work, just to meet my full time hour quota or whatever. It's like, I don't want to do stagehand work. What the like? I've, I graduated from that shit like years ago. Graduated from that years ago. I tell stagehands what to do. I like that's my thing. And so and I was and so it in the and I wanted the freelance so that I have the space to start doing more and do other stuff than just the sound engineering, right? The sound engineering production company work anchors me to my success. It generates funding for my other pursuits, whether that be music creation or public speaking or coaching or whatever, you know? Uh, that's the glory of the freelance lifestyle is I can say, I don't want to work at this. I don't want to work this gig. That gig that's coming up, I don't want to work it because I need that time for something else. And, and to be able to make that choice. I didn't want a job. I don't want a job. And so I'm not going to take the full-time position. Sure. Are there benefits for taking that job? Yes, there are benefits. Plenty of them. But taking that job would be diametrically opposed to the trajectory that I want to be in, or rather it would be diametrically opposed to having that full-time position with a production company would be diametrically opposed to my approach to sound in music as a career being multi-stream income and fluid. The second I take a full-time job and I'm obligated to work a specific number of hours for a company, that's when I lose that fluidity and flexibility. And that's something that I learned from Nick and Dan. You probably learned some of that from Randy Massengale. So, what's next? I don't know. I don't know what's next. I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. And I wish I had the fucking CCA. I like I feel like I have a couple pieces of code, and if I had the whole operating system, I would be unstoppable. But I can't access it. It's like I know it's like right there. It's right there. It's like, hey, this is the way to think about the world. And if you do it like this, like I know it. If I had the CCA principles, if I had like that framework of how to create something, how to put luck and randomness on my side, if I had that, I would be unstoppable. 100%. I look at how I've applied that in my life since I started learning some of these concepts from them 2 years. 2 years. I can't believe it's been 2 years. But but I'm way better off, with those couple pieces of code. But man, I want that whole fucking operating system. Because I know if I had it, I would be unstoppable. I would be able to make such a huge positive impact on so many people's lives. And I would be able to make money doing it somehow. I don't know. And I feel like having the operating system would help me figure it out. Help me figure out what I should pursue, how I should pursue it, and to engineer my success, my luck. How to engineer luck. Like all of the principle, like they teach the principles are very good. I love them. And I can't practice all of them all of the time. Or there's some times where I'm like, okay, I'm doing that thing, right? What do I do to change my behavior to accommodate for that? Okay, now that I've seen this enough times, I know what it looks like. And so I can, using the science of hindsight, when this happens, then that happens. And you watch it happen enough times, and you can say, okay, this is the pattern because in hindsight, I've seen it happen this way. So next time it happens, I already know what it's going to look like, and I can make a different decision because I've seen it. I may not get it right the first, the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth time, maybe even the 15th time, but I see it enough times. I pay attention to it in hindsight, be like, I did it again. I did it again. Okay, there's a pattern. Find the pattern. You can change your behavior, change the pattern. This is an experiment. Episode 42. Peace out.